Welcome to the Mystical Motherhood Podcast. This is Chelsea, and I want you to create a happy family. I use my background in Western and Eastern medicine, birth, and ancient yogic practices to help the modern mother learn how to live a healthier life and create conscious children. This is your guide to fertility, conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and the early childhood years. Are you ready to live the life of your dreams? Welcome to Season 3 of Mystical Motherhood's podcast. Today is a big day because we're going through a lot on the planet. And I talked a lot about the heart opening of humanity that would be occurring. And this is a big part of it, this virus hitting the lungs and the level of fear that's happening on the planet and the level of fear that's happening within human beings. We all have a choice right now to choose love or choose fear, and to choose light or to choose dark. And I talk a lot about this in this podcast. But what happens when you get pregnant during this period? My guest today has recently found out she's pregnant with a child, and she's decided to keep this child. So our journey is helping her to understand what she's going through, understand the type of man she's with, and the decision she's making by keeping a child with a man that she's really not sure of how the relationship is going to turn out. So I allow the space for her to just see the levels of awakening that she can go through and how she can set her life up so that this child can be safe upon being born. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you like it, please leave a message. You can subscribe below. And if you have any questions, please go to my website at www.mysticalmotherhood.com. Both of my books, Fertile and Mystical Motherhood, can be found on my website. They're published under the name Pritam Atma, which is all on the first page of Mystical Motherhood. If you need help with anything, or you know anybody who needs help at this time, please write me. If there's any subjects you want on this podcast, send me an email at mysticalmotherhood@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from all of you. I hope you like this. And if you're going through a hard time right now, I'm here for you.
I'm feeling in disharmony and in pain with my current pregnancy. And I'm really desiring to connect to my pregnancy.
Okay, so tell me the whole story of what's going on and why you're feeling, where's the disharmony coming from?
The disharmony is coming from primarily the way that I thought I would feel. I consciously conceived this child. And am entering, at the time when I was consciously conceiving, was entering a navigation of open relationships with my partner. And it felt really kind of fun and expansive. And I was really open to all of the triggers that were coming up to like expand, not feeling like this was ever going to be a long lasting relationship status for me, but just to like see what was there, what was my resistance. So we were playing with that at the same time as consciously conceiving. And before I even knew I was pregnant, I just automatically stopped desiring to have that lifestyle. I was never much of wanting to be with other partners as much as my partner was wanting to be with other partners. And so I just thought, I guess that once I found out I was pregnant, I was really, really excited. But I just instantly felt this turmoil of the partnership that I'm currently in, and feeling like I knew that we were supposed to have a child together. It's very clear to me when we met each other that we were supposed to have a child together. And so I feel this disharmony because I'm in pain. I'm in emotional pain. I'm in this, it feels like PTSD. And then I am desiring to be just elated, to be blissful, to be the way that I thought it was going to be, the way that I had desired it to be pregnant, and feeling like I'm fulfilling this contract, but I'm frustrated at the contract.
Okay, so you feel like you have a contract with him to have a child, and when you saw him, or maybe a contract from some other period, didn't get completed or something, and so you have some sort of a thing to work out with him on some sort of a normal earth level to have this child. And is there a time in your life where you felt this level of disharmony before in your childhood? Like, have you been in this, like, what does this remind you of? Where have you felt this before? Because it's a pattern you probably are repeating. And so when we actively walk into situations like that, where you say you're consciously conceiving, which for you, you may have been consciously asking for a child to come through. But conscious conception is when two people are really doing this together and they're ready to do this together, and there's a whole different experience. And that may be what conscious conception means to you. And everybody has a different, idea of what conscious conception is, but conscious conception is a relationship between the male and the female coming together. This is the whole next book I'm going to write, because I have to redefine that and understand that and what that means in this world when two adults are still working out their self-sabotagers. And so when the two self-sabotagers of two adults come together to create a child, what kind of circumstances does that create? And so you're going to create that disharmony, which you could work through if you come through some acceptance. But it doesn't help where we are on the planet right now to add the extra level of pressure in, like a pressure cooker of the calcination of what can happen when you make these kind of decisions.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things I want to do, because I'm not here. So have you decided, are you keeping this pregnancy? Are you on the fence? Because then it changes the way we speak. If you're on the fence about it, I will take you down two roads and have you look at yourself. If you're going to keep this pregnancy, we would go about this in a different way.
I do want to keep this pregnancy. There's the pain tells me, but when I drop into my essence and I really sit with myself, I really want to be pregnant. I really want to go through this. This is a part of the process. I see it as a beautiful part of the process that it is.
And this is also why I created Mystical Motherhood, is because a lot of times when the awakening starts with pregnancy. And so what we don't even consciously realize is the pain that you may be feeling is actually the pain of all the women in your family that have likely had the same thing happen in some manner, shape, or form. And so I bet we could find a pattern, and you don't even know why you're feeling this level of disharmony when you should be feeling so excited when the male doesn't respond the way you want. I mean, this can happen when you're married. Just so you know, you could be in some beautiful relationship and then the male just is out. And that's what my next book will look at is what is it in this world when everybody's functioning off of these self-sabotagers or these levels, of unhealed places. What is conscious conception until that we define what that is, we don't know. It's still almost being built. There's what the yogis say, and there's everything that I've had in my book. But when it comes between the male and the female creating the child, that's a whole nother navigation system. And so this is about your own awakening. And this is why the whole thing I've created happened, is because people it's a point in someone's life, like right now on the planet, this fire that's occurring, which is the first stage of alchemy. It's calcination. It's the blackness, darkness stage. It's the deconstruction of the ego and the moving into the higher chakras of heart opening, which I've talked about in other podcasts, which was going to be happening this year, is this all these lower frequency things like fear, all the base chakra things like fear, food, work, housing, survival, then to sexual stuff, which was the Me Too movement, and the different things like men, really looking at what has happened in the church, in the religious sector, and then also now the market falling, which is the ignorance and the attachment and the power centers of humanity are all going to get shaken up probably over the next 7 years. And more things will start falling, but all that within a human being and within a collective consciousness and within the macrocosm of what's happening has to get shaken up and destroyed until there's just nothing left, until you surrender and your heart will open, but you cannot get into these higher places. So that's happening on a larger scale. And if you haven't healed all those parts of you, anyone who's listening, you're going to go right into the fear of whatever's happening. And there's two different types of energetic experiences on the planet that are very palpable and easy to drop into. And you're going to have to choose over the next 6 months which one you want to pick. And one is fear, one is love. One is, I guess, negative, one is positive. Polarity. It's a polarity is happening. And each one is as easy to get on. Because everyone thinks, oh, how can I get in that light or dark? Let's call it light or darkness, this polarity. How can I jump on the light train? Because right now you're on the dark train. And there's 13 days until April 1st where we can really easily get on that light train. And then there is still a possibility. This is through another teacher, and I can't name the name, but it also came to me very clearly through something I received. But we're going to have a shift. And so you have to choose where you're headed. And you have to choose to do that type of inner work, or you can fight against it and go into a deep depression. So that's just a warning, basically. So
yeah, I could definitely feel those two, the last 2 days. Today I feel it's lifting a little bit, but it's almost like I went through the visceral experience of choosing the fear, of choosing the darkness. Mm-hmm. And then like being able to pretty quickly just kind of jump out of that for a moment through meditation and like see that that's not the path that I want to take, but that I stepped into it for 1 second to really solidify that I want to do the work to choose love and stay in love.
And it will continually come at you to test you. And there will be like attacks on all these different levels. Like the consciousness is going to get really weird. I mean, you might have things in your house change, computer glitches, viruses, all kinds of things are going to happen that are trying to get you. So let's say you ignore what's happening on the planet. Let's say you ignore your husband or your partner or semi-partner. You're still going to have all kinds of things try to get you out of that. And so back to this work that I've been putting on the planet, Mystical Motherhood, is why I choose Kundalini is because it's the fastest thing I know of that gets you out of it. Mm-hmm. and ruin. And so people are going to be going crazy. And that's about to happen. And I see it on the streets of New York City because I'm right in the middle of it, experiencing a really intensity here, but I don't feel it. I mean, I do often off and on, of course, naturally. But you have to do twice as much work right now to stop the pressure. So I'm talking about what's going on with humanity as a whole, and then we're going to talk about you because that's a big part of all of this. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of people dying, and all those souls are going to have to come back through. It's going to create more space here on the planet in some way, and conscious conception may become a thing. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But you have to do twice as much work right now. And people don't like that because there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of, there's a lot of healing can happen through a lot of rest because nobody's been resting. So that's really important. It's okay to just not do anything. But if you want to stay in that kind of light energy right now, the pressure is going to be so intense and that it's going to cap us. And so in order to kind of stay sane, it's okay to do more. It's almost like necessary. And anybody who doesn't have a practice isn't going to make it. They're not going to make it. in my opinion. Maybe, and maybe if they have some sort of an idea of just having presence and calmness, and that's just their normal routine. But people who don't, I think they need something to relieve the pressure. But anyway, what you're going through right now is a part of your own awakening. If you're so we're choosing to keep this baby, and then I guess I still want to create two roads with you. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to see these two different roads that you can begin to create. So let's do the road where you actually father the child with this man, and then the road where you don't father the child with this man. So we're going to consciously call in his spirit right now. And I want you to tell us about your interactions right now. And then I want you to kind of drop in a year, and in 2 years, and in 3 years, and in 4 or 5, and honest to God with yourself, say where you think this may be going.
Okay. You want me to just kind of share what we're currently experiencing?
I want you to do from your drop into your intuition. Okay. And I can help you, but you'll see it.
I feel what's coming through is that there is it's like right now currently it's that we're both meeting our capacities, and they're really different. My capacity, my desires for where our relationship is going to go is different from, there's just a discord. But what I see that is in harmony is that there is a lot of genuine love between him and I, just really genuine love. And he's very much trying to figure out a way to stay in integrity and in authenticity with himself at the same time as sharing that love with me. And because I had a different prescribed way that I wanted it to look, I'm rejecting that love. And we're both we're doing that. We're rejecting each other, wanting each other, rejecting each other, wanting each other. We're both doing it. We're both definitely.
So you're both emotionally unavailable.
In some capacity, yeah.
Because a man who's telling you, being pregnant, that he wants to be with other partners is a completely emotionally unavailable for you. Do you understand that? And that's okay, but you need to see that first off. And there's a part of you that just said to us, I need to accept him where he is. Right? We know that. But it's also, there's a part of you. So this is where we have to grow into our own self-worth and our own self-love of that's not okay. And so there's like part of us that always take crumbs as women that say, oh, he just doesn't have the capacity to write back thank you, or to take me to dinner, or let's say you have expectations of what you're hoping he'll do, right? Mm-hmm. But where in your life did a man teach you that was okay? Who was that? Where was the template created? Was there a male in your life growing up?
Yeah, my father.
And what was he like?
Early years, he was just a really strong workaholic.
He wasn't really around then?
Wasn't really around. And he chose, my mother was out of the picture when I was around 6 or 7 for many years. And he remarried to a woman who was not very kind to me. So even though he was always really loving and a great provider, I just recently in the last few years have uncovered that I feel betrayed by that he wouldn't protect me from people who were mean to me.
And then he never did. So he never came in to protect you, to hold you and to make you feel safe and to give you a house and to give you love in that kind of way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you feel like you've kind of found that in another partner to play that out because never really got healed? You see the connection?
I can see it a little bit, but it's not fully clicking all the way. So
let me help you. So the male that you're with right now, and this is okay. I'm not telling you anything different. I'm just wanting you to, this is going to help you go. In order for the heart chakra to open, all of this you have to see the pattern, and then you can almost have compassion for the male and yourself. Because it's not your fault. It's that, your father, this is how you grew up. The little girl, and so this is what mystical motherhood's all about. It's raising you up, making you so you're probably caught sometimes at the age of 6 to 7 when mom left. Okay. So that's where the original wound hit. All right. So if we can get to healing that original wound, where that is, you'll then not mother from that wound. You'll mother from your age. If you do not heal that wound, you'll mother from the 7-year-old half the time. You'll program the baby from the level of that consciousness. And so the deep healing comes from seeing that you are replaying out these wounds in your life somehow, some way. And the generational patterns of shifting that so that we become, I don't know how many thousands of women this will reach, that we become the last generation that actually allows that behavior. Because it's so many times this change of the patriarchy into the matriarchy is they've gotten away with murder and we're creating it because we're allowing it. And we're staying in it. And we're hoping and praying and going back to the male who doesn't treat us well. And so we go to them for crumbs. I did it my whole life. There wasn't a male that I didn't feel attachment towards, wanting and needing my daddy to love me. And when they didn't, I would keep attracting another male that would recreate that pain of daddy never giving me love. And so all of us have some sort of a wound that we have to go through and see our own pattern. And that biggest wound, it's mommy or daddy, some connection to it. And what happens usually is you have to clear what I see. It might be different for everybody, but there's the mother wound clear. It's like, I guess people can kind of do them together, but it's almost like they have to clear separately. Like the mother wound has to clear, and that can take years. And then the father wound has to clear. And my father wound was more massive. I had no idea. And your consciousness can only handle so much at a time. Mm-hmm. And so the level of awakening of all these different levels, the deepness of the wounds and the onion of it is like, okay, so we've got the world macrocosm and cosmic thing going on of the calcination of, alchemy, which is a whole nother podcast. Alchemy is 7 stages of transformation. And I talk about it slightly in Fertile of the use of the elements for transformation. And so one of the first stages is calcination, and it's the destruction of the ego, and it's this darkness and this depression and this blackness. So you're feeling that. But as we peel it back, the dissolution is the second stage of alchemy. And dissolution is the use of water. And dissolution is where the emotions and the grief and the pouring out. So we begin to actually see how our belief systems and our behaviors and our past are destroying us. And then we go through these stages of alchemy. So we get higher into spirit or God, so that basically when anything happens like this on earth, or you become pregnant and it's part of your life, or you want to have a baby, but you're not sure, right? It doesn't matter. It's like you're still in so much joy and love and light inside that you're not ignorant to these things, but you're so happy it's okay. You're going to make it because you're neutral, right? And so what I need you to begin to see is the patterns, how the reflection of the hologram of your outside world is actually a repeat of your childhood. And the awakening of you stopping the generational patterns for this child. So use this man. Great. Just say, okay, so you're consciously conceiving. And what that means to me is you're consciously ready to destroy your past. That's what it means. It's not woo-woo. It's not like light and love. It's awful. It's really effing painful. And so mystical motherhood's like, okay, so if we're going to do something differently, it's not necessarily always feeling good. So that's why I add the Kundalini yoga to it, because it's going to make it go a lot faster. But a big part of it is for you to see, okay, daddy never gave me safety, love. Let's go through the things this also goes to Maslow's hierarchy. So my first book, Mystical Motherhood, which is available on Amazon, looks at Maslow's hierarchy. And it explains that in motherhood, we have to have our bottom needs met, which are connected to our lower chakra. So our housing, our food, which I told you before, things that we need to survive. That baby needs these things. And then we can move up into the higher levels like love and belonging, self-esteem, into a fully self-actualized human. And then Fertile, which is also available on Amazon, it's written under Pritam Atma, looks at how the elements will move you through that. So is this all kind of making sense? Mm-hmm. So if you know that dad never really, and he could have consciously actually created this for you, but your subconscious was programmed with, I don't feel safe. And what were the things that dad created in your life?
I think it's so, what's hard for me, where the block is that I spent most of my life actually with figuring out my mother wound. And until, like I said a few years ago, that I didn't realize that I had a father wound.
Mm-hmm. This is exactly what I said. People don't realize it because they don't. Yeah. The one that you don't want to work on is the one that you avoid.
And I attached to him in such a way, and it felt so safe because of the chaos that I was living with my mother, which she was a drug addict and a prostitute. And so moving in with him in a stable home, but not really available, that felt really like good. So, but when I can pull that back and see as an adult, how that I did not get what I needed out of either of those relationships. And that wasn't necessarily good, just because in contrast, it was better than what I had with my mother. And so it just, there always seems to be a little bit of like a block that I have to work through when I start talking about the father wound, because I feel like I'm betraying him. Because I just protected. I just felt like he did the best that he could. I'm so grateful for for some stability, and so there's this protection that comes up. It almost literally feels like this shield that comes up in front of me.
But it's pretty amazing, because this is exactly what I was saying on a bigger scale. Is we've protected. If you look at like a mother-in-law, and the way that they're like, there's nothing wrong with my son, there's something wrong with you. The way that we have upheld the patriarchy and our own inner patriarchy, and upheld the way that males are accepted, the behavior is accepted. And then we get mad at, like, even the way we look at our way we are with our female friends sometimes. I mean, hopeful God, I don't have that, but I don't know. We always have blocks to where we can't see about ourselves. But the way that you're saying, like, your mom had the obvious flaws, and women tend to have the obvious flaws, but the men have equal issues. But for some reason, it's just accepted that emotionally unavailable men are the only kind of men. Mm-hmm. And I have found through my personal research that is not true. There are so many available men out there. And I had to actually go through this to take other women through it, to tell you that I am on the other side, and I am meeting emotionally available men to the best of their own ability, right? that are good men. And so there's the part of us that constantly accepts the crumbs and doesn't have the self-worth or self-esteem to know that we can be loved, will go to these men and, just like you said in the very beginning, say that it's okay if he wants an open relationship. It's not okay. It hurts so much to know that he's saying that. I mean, there's almost like that's the grief of it, because there's dad. And there's dad right in front of you. And it's so painful. And he may change. And it's like, if you begin to heal this, you may be incredibly surprised that actually his behavior, and this is what has happened in my life. The more I've healed my own self and my own wounds around my father, oh my God, every male that I blamed for my issues, oh my God, we're best friends now. They're fine. I don't have anything in me that doesn't like them anymore, because I just have gone into complete compassion and acceptance. And another thing that helped with that, 2 meditations changed my life around healing these male wounds. The Purkh, and that's S-O, new word, Purkh, combined with a prayer called the Meera Man Lochai. If you're going to choose one, start with the Purkh. So the Purkh prayer is a Sikh prayer, and you say the Sikh words. I think Niranjan Kaur does one, and it's on Amazon, and it's also available on iTunes. And you just say the words Gurmukhi along with her 11 times a day. And you can do that prayer for up to 3 males, or you can do it to call in your husband. And you do it for 40 days minimum, or you can continue to do it. And there's another prayer that really helps to heal the wounds of the heart, and it's called the Meera Man Lochai. And I will put that in the bottom of this podcast. And the Meera Man Lochai is a prayer that you can sing along to. So if you Google healing the wounds of love, and you do this as a practice every single day, you'll heal twice as fast. Because the heart of humanity, again, the 100th time, it's opening. And so if you guys want to go through it quicker, the Meera Man Lochai, it's called Healing the Wounds of Love, will get you there, even listening to it. But for you need to do the Purkh prayer for him like you've never done it before. If you want this to work, you do it. And so there's, especially in this times when there's a choice between the light or the dark, it's going to be really easy not to meditate because it's going to, or whatever, not to focus because it's like, meh, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. There's too much to do. The pressure's too high. But in order to break through that like wall or that glass ceiling, you have to do something. Kind of like getting up and working out. So if you're with dad and he never made you feel safe, and he actually never really provided you a house because you were with your mom, right? He should have been around providing that. And then he invites some other woman in that it makes you feel unsafe. He's never really creating a safe space or showing you deep love, and he's never really available for you, right? Mm-hmm. And so do you see how you've recreated this in every part of your life right now?
Yeah, I can.
And that how you called this man in possibly as a contract or as someone who can be your greatest healing? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you also have to recognize that only one person in the relationship has to do the work. I mean, no one's going to agree with me, but you can't make them do the work. They're not able to. But if you do the work, they'll start to go down their own path, and it may not be on a path with you. But it will be on a path. They are either, so when your frequency begins to change and upgrade, if you choose to change it, people will either rise with you or they will be eliminated. They cannot be in your space anymore as you change. It's just, I've never seen anything different. And so people who like always stay in the same place, or like, for example, live in the same town, never move, never have any ideas, never change, ever, they're not changing, and they're going to stay there. And that's where they're going to live. But if you're on a path of awakening, of an accelerated motion, movement is a part of it, because you have so much more to get done, so much more to see, so much more to accomplish. But with this man, so we know where this is coming from. We know the wound you have to look at. And that's getting to that father wound and unpeeling that, and even becoming conscious that it even exists. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at him, the way we become conscious that these wounds exist is we cannot blame that man for creating the wound. So what we tend to do is we tend to project everything onto the human in front of us as if it's their fault for acting that way. If somebody else is creating a pain within you, the pain is located within you, not caused by them. And I know this for myself because once I heal the pain within me, that person can no longer ever create the pain they can no longer hurt me because they don't have that power because it's always me creating my own reality.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm seeing I'm seeing that, like, I'm just taking some accountability right now and doing, because I feel like I know so much, right? And I feel like I've been on the path for a long time, and I do feel like I have been lazy about doing the work to actually transform and change. And I just need to, like, say that out loud and, like, have some self-accountability for, I've been waiting for some sort of savior situation, something to come along and change all of it, right? Something to just automatically come, a person to come and show me all these things, and I've been gathering the information, but I've not been truly embodying it as much as I need to, as I want to.
Well, it's also good to say, like, it's always like better to be like, I don't know anything. Like sometimes if I think I know stuff, I'm just like, oh my God, do they just wipe me out again? Like they can't, like if I even feel like I know anything, I feel like something comes along and blows me up every single time. And I'm humbled over and over again of how much more I can learn and how much more I can be destroyed. And I'm always welcoming it. I'm like, okay, and when this virus hit this world, I just said, you can't take anything else away from me. I've already lost everything. There's nothing else I could possibly lose other than my, I don't want to say the words, but just my dear ones, And so for this, you have, according to the yogis, if you want to believe this system or not, till the 120th day after conception to get your act together. Okay, to do that. So let's give you a timeline so that you can begin to feel better. So we chosen that you're keeping this child. B, we know that this man is representing dad. So we cannot blame this man for recreating dad within your life because you ran back into fire to recreate dad. That's what you did. And so you can go in that now that you're in the fire. So basically everyone's in the fire, but you're really in the fire, triple in the fire because the world's on fire and now you're on fire too, right? And so you need to go to Mystical Motherhood and you need to look at what the base needs are, or just Google Maslow's hierarchy. And you need to understand, like, okay, what do I really need right now to make sure I'm safe to have a baby? And if that's moving in, you both need to sit down and do this. If that's moving in, like where you need to think about the basic things and you don't have that much time. It's like, you need to start to think of where are you going to live? Where will the baby live? If you don't live with him, how are you going to support this child? If you are you working? Like these things need to be written out and planned. And there's no consciousness about it until those basic things are met. Like, you're bringing a child into this world. Let's not talk about like the clearing of the baby can happen. Just do some yoga. Okay. Right. But you need to get down to like, okay, what do you need to do to get this child safe? I mean, have you done that with him at all?
I mean, we're kind of in the process of that as we're like trying to navigate our living situations and work, right now, especially with like what's going on. Luckily, there's financial stability on his end. So we're in that process of trying to figure that out, of what we're going to do for living situations.
Well, I would sit down and I would say we need to figure this out in the next 3 months. And then we need to figure out, who will be things you need to think about before you have a child on a practical level. Not people focus on the birth. Don't focus on the birth. Focus on, okay, who's going to take care of the baby when the baby comes out? How much time are you going to spend with the baby? And you need to run 2 different timelines because this is a different situation. You need to not create only timeline with this man. You need to run a timeline that if this man is not around, and you need to have 2 plans going. It's almost like if it doesn't work, I am okay, and then moving to plan B. And that's being conscious and not being the victim around dad. And so as this all plays out, you have to be being conscious is the fire will create the necessary changes to release the ego. Then the distillation process is the release of the emotions. And so all of your reactions around the way he behaves as your ego is melting will be really intense. Because the little girl in you is going to fall into victim of why daddy doesn't love you. If he plays this with you, and if you guys play this out. Does this make sense? Which it feels like you're going to, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to be consciously aware of every time the 2 of you go into it like that, you need to be like, I am growing up to raise my child. So every time you begin to go into the little girl that's wounded, you need to snap out of it. The faster, the better. Every time he abandons you, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, physically, for anything else, if he's going to choose to do that, and you 2 are going down this road, you need to say, how old am I? Right? It's like, go back to it. Just be like, what did she tell me? How old am I reacting from? What's my age right now? Where's the memory I'm holding within me that's recreating this type of trauma? Right? Because we're all just reliving out our old trauma until it's healed. Even on a planetary level, like, look at what's happening. It's just trauma. It's just constant trauma. Yeah. And so you need to say, okay, if I'm going to raise this child, I cannot react from the 7-year-old, because it doesn't matter if that child comes out, you're not going to change. And so that's important. So running the 2 lines. So you need to run out from not just 9 months. You need to run out for like the next 3 to 5 years, 2 different plans. And that's part of this conscious conception is one plan, how it may work with him, and write out what the reality of that is and write out what the hopes of that is. So that's even like 2 plans in itself. And then there's the exit plan. So if you exit, are you living close to him? How much does he see the baby? And you guys need to talk out as if both of these things are simultaneously happening. Because also what's happening on a planetary level is there's timelines that people can choose. So you can literally choose a different timeline. You can choose all kinds of belief systems about what's happening. You can accelerate your growth much faster right now. You can jump into a new timeline. You can change it all. So you could play out this sabotager role with him, or you could be like, let's not. let me do 10 more. Let me do the Purkh. Let me do the Meera Man Lochai. Let me do these meditations and see if I can work it out there or find a different outlet to work it out with and stay with you longer. Until we don't have the same frequency anymore, we have nothing else to work out.
Mm-hmm.
There was a story. Yogi Bhajan had a man, like a mentally ill man, a part of his community. And he was a disaster. I think he was always on drugs. And I think he ended up dying of drugs. And he was just always causing his mother problems, and really, really difficult son. A really, really difficult son. And so one day he went to his funeral. He died. So the whole community went to the funeral. And they buried the son. And he said, today we're burying a saint. And everyone went into shock. And they said, you have the wrong man. This man is not a saint, Yogi Bhajan. This man was a horrible man. He was horrible to everybody. And he goes, he is a saint because his mother did nothing but pray for her son her whole life. And she prayed for hours upon hours upon hours. And she was the main person, a part of this dharmic community. And so her prayer created so much of an energy that she ran the organization off her level of frequency and off her level of prayer. And so that son, from his point of view, as a higher point of view, as a God point of view, a more neutral point of view, that son came to earth, chose that incarnation of being a terrible son, right? Playing out the drug son, so she would be able to pray so deeply to create a dharma that would go on for centuries. And so if you look at things like this higher point of view, which I try to do more and more and more and more in my life, I can see it's all a play.
Mm-hmm.
And so the things that we're missing in our lives, the things that we want to be different or we want to change, we often have to work harder for or not work at all, right? But if you want to change them, we may pray more. And so you can look at this as, oh my gosh, this man is helping me to change. You can blame it on him, but he in the end is just going to open your heart. But the Purkh will help.
Yeah.
So if you follow up with this homework, it's going to give you a lot more clarity on, and this is with anyone, if you're like freaking out right now and you're in the middle of like, you're at your, because this would be at the bottom, you're feeling like you should be in the highest joy of your life, but you're not, right? So you're at you're hit rock bottom, but rock bottom is necessary to get out of. And rock bottom can create a lot of magnetism, actually. Surprisingly.
I was definitely feeling that the other day, or considering that before I even went into a lot of pain and trauma, was that I just kept getting these messages that this baby is going to awaken me, and how I kind of was rejecting that. Like I didn't like a part of me that felt like I don't want to use this child as my, I don't want to like, almost in that, I don't know, codependency or like abusive way of like, I don't know what like really came up for me in that, but it was interesting. And I just want to like share that I found that was really interesting and I think it might come from that pre-prescribed ideal that I had in mind of being pregnant and being blissful and having amazing epigenetics and working through my ancestral line and clearing out the trauma and having it just be so blissful that it's like to also hear that this is a part of the awakening and the ascension, that I know that that's not necessarily blissful all the time. It's horrible. It's so painful. I am in so much pain.
Yeah. But this is also necessary for the heart to open, and until all that stuff is gone, I don't know. I don't think I was ever happy in my life until now. And I had to go through all of that. It's horrible. I'm here for you, man. Knocks you to the floor. Mm-hmm. And then it does it again. And this is what alchemy is. There's a very good book by David Hauck. It's called The Emerald Tablet. And it's going to help anyone who's listening. David Hauck, Emerald Tablet on Amazon. It's ancient. It's like 1960s or 70s. And I didn't know what I was going through all these years. And then my teacher, Celestine Starr, said, here, take this book home. And then I was like, oh, I understand. And it's a process that we're going through on a level of humanity now, but I can look at it with objectivity or kind of neutrally and be like, yeah, everybody's going to go through that. But we all have to go through that as the planet changes. And it's just not fun because we're ignorant. And ignorance is not wanting to see the obvious. And it's giving excuses for the obvious. And it's accepting the ways things are because we're not willing to change or do the work to do so. And it can't be like that anymore. Mm-hmm. I feel like you're like at a level of what you can handle. What is anything else? You just have to take it day by day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You need to make one thing you'll accomplish each day. And everyone who's listening, it's kind of like that. Just like, okay, today I'm going. And if it may be very simple, like I'm going to go on a walk.
That has literally been my daily goal.
Yeah. And that's okay. I'm going to go on a walk and I'm going to do a meditation. And I'm going, and then and maybe for the week, and then this week I'm going to create this master plan for my life. And it may be over the next month you create that master plan, but you have to complete it. And you have to commit to making that plan, because if you don't do it, you're going to be all over the place all the time. Mm-hmm. And there's a part of you, the little girl, that's used to being all over the place all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's your norm. And so you have to look at that's even the level of higher awakening and higher consciousness around all this is like, what have I created? And then once you realize how much chaos you create for yourself, you're like, I am absolutely mentally ill. Like when I recognized how much chaos I was creating with attracting the level of males I was attracting, I always blamed them.
Right.
It's not them. I did that. So you have to take ownership for what you create in your own life. Mm-hmm. And then look at all the patterns. And it's almost like drawing it out when may help you is like, okay, so what's chaotic in my life right now? What is not in balance? And make a circle like me, and then do little cells from those circles. And then from that, you say, okay, why am I doing this? And what did the little girl, and they're like, timeline your life. Do it as like so one will be a circle where you create your life, with lines going out from it. Another piece of paper, and make it big. Do a long timeline of your life and see where all the major traumatic memories come in. And you'll start to remember like massive, and it might be in deep meditation. But and what kind of was the circumstances at those times? It's like the bigger programming. This is epigenetics. And so you look at like, I'm reliving my 7-year-old play self with this. I remember when I was in college and I got attacked then, or whatever. Let's create it. I'm reliving that in this relationship because it's still in me. And the motivation, that's why pregnancy is so beautiful, because the only motivation you have is to not F it up for the child. And that's what the child's helping you awaken is they're like, okay, you ready to change? Because I'm coming. Yeah. You say you want to do it differently, but you didn't have the motivation to do it because it was just you before and who cares? And now it's not.
Yeah.
And that's the difference is, for me, I still yell at my kids. I am doing my very best, but they're like, Mom, you're doing it. And then I snap now. So we learned when I get angry, I just clap my hands like a seal and it's better. Right. But I know I am way aware that I'm turning into my grandma Wheezy or, whoever in my childhood. Still, even after so much meditation, so much work, but the level becomes so much less often, so much quicker to catch it. Rather than going through something for days, you catch it in a second. So rather than you getting triggered by him abandoning you for a week, abandonment happens for 3 seconds. You're like, I feel abandoned. And you walk away. Doesn't hurt me now. Or that could have triggered me. It will get to that point when you begin to heal it.
Yeah.
Where you just begin to kind of observe it rather than get into it. And that's the distillation process. Is this helpful?
It is. It's really helpful. Yeah.
It's just helpful to make you feel like you're not crazy, right?
Yeah. And just to feel like I'm not, fucking it all up. That was just so painful to have those thoughts of like, I don't know if I want this child.
Well, don't have those thoughts anymore.
Yeah.
Because you'll create it. Because you do want the child.
Yeah.
If you do want the child, you need to eliminate those thoughts, particularly after the 120th day, because then that child will be programmed with those thoughts. Remember, because back into fertile, whatever's in this mind, whatever you're surrounding yourself with, you're creating a movie theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any questions? Did I give you enough homework?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the homework. And no, I don't feel. Could you mention that book, The
Emerald Tablet by David Hauck.
Okay.
And what this is about, which is going to be the basis of my next book, is how I've got to figure out how to take women through the alchemical process, which it goes back to ancient Egypt, and it's from Thoth. So Thoth was because I work with the goddess Isis, and the goddess Isis helped me write Fertile. And she was the original birther, and Thoth was a partner of hers, not sexually, but Thoth he did the scribe work, and he was also Hermes in Greece. And so there's an alchemical process that they call it alchemy. And alchemy is the use of elements, but it's how God works with us in these realms. And this is, there's steps to it. There's 7 steps, like we call it, like the chakras, that we have to move through. And right now, humanity's in the first step of calcination. Mm-hmm. But it takes, and then you move through it, and then you move through it again. So I went through alchemy 7 years ago through all the processes, and then I wasn't distilled enough. Like it's multiple things will happen. So calcination is something that burns you up, and it happens really quick, destroys the ego, destroys your world. You may lose all your money. You may lose material realms, just like what's happening on this world of like the market falling. No one has a job, shelter's gone. It's all the base fear chakra stuff that has to be shaken up. And then let's say it's not shaken up enough. After you go through the phases of alchemy, you'll go through them again. Mm-hmm. And then you'll become even. So it's just because it's like, how much more can you become empty? Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
As real.
Does it happen faster as it distills and distills and distills? It
did for me, yes. So the first part of my alchemical process was like 8 years. And then I went through it again. A second time, and the second time was 2 years. So it's not pleasant. It's not short, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to just be a better human tomorrow. No, it's horrible. It's awful. God, shoot me. It's not, but you'll be a better mom, and you won't pass the stuff on. And this is to me, like, not conscious motherhood is not picking out nice things for a bedroom. It's like, okay, how am I not going to pass on the same pattern? And we can even find another pattern that the way you became pregnant, I bet I could find it. This isn't even a reading. This is just a discussion, but I bet I could find it in your family. Mm. The way that you become pregnant, or the feelings your mother may have had, or the feelings your grandma may have had. I bet you, if you tap into it, which is another healing, what your mom felt when she got pregnant with you. How does that make you feel? Horrible, or more aware that you may be playing out something for your mother? Sometimes these pains that we play out, or sicknesses we have, or things that we do when we begin to really get into the spiritual path, we're clearing it for them.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, and I'm lucky enough to, to have I'm able to communicate with my mother and ask her, and she's honest. She's a very heart-loving woman amongst all of her flaws, but she's very honest. And how did you feel when you got pregnant with me? And how did, what was your emotional status? And
she's only going to respond from the level that she can.
that she's aware. Yeah.
Yeah, that she's unconscious, just like just so you know, just like you can only respond from the level that you're consciously aware of at the moment in time.
Right.
And that's how consciousness, we can only handle so much.
Right.
And I recognize that with myself and my own patterns is I could, like, as I was going through things and clearing things out, now I'm probably going to go through it again. There's more to always let go of. But I could only see so much in front of me at one time. My consciousness could only handle so much pain as my heart was opening. And that's the same with, like, let's say the whole world's falling apart right now. If you're losing your job and you're losing your house and you don't have a good relationship with your husband and you don't have a good sex life and you can only as a human handle one crap pile at a time. Okay, first so that's like you have to make a list. First, I'll get a job. Second, I'll make, because that provides the food and the shelter. Like, it's only like, and then once that's done, okay, I can complete this. And that's how we move up the list and create our self-actualized state. But the energy to do so, I feel like, really helps from Kundalini Yoga. And I hate to be the spokesperson. I know that Kundalini Yoga is under, a lot of tension right now from what's going on, but I think it's there for a reason. And I think it's going to help change humanity in the future. Right?
Yeah. I'm a big fan.
Okay. Any more things you want to go over?
No, I feel pretty complete. And also, just like on such, my emotional capacity right now is just, but these are really good things to kind of, even though I know it's hard, it just kind of re-invoked some excitement of possibilities and potentials and healings. And that feels really good. And I'm really grateful for that.